Just 3 weeks to go and we are done with this odyssey. I'm John Renton with the Retro Review of WCW Nitro from March 5th, 2001. And yep, they just slam us right into Rick Steiner, slamming Booker T verbally, cutting a promo on him, saying he was a bad world champion, building up to stuff for greed. And Booker comes out and says, hey, you know, all this stuff I did with your brother and now you want to face me? Well, how about we make it for the U.S. Championship? And, well, they don't make it for the U.S. Championship here. They brawl and then have a singles match that wasn't bad, but Rick Steiner at this point, as a singles competitor, it wasn't the best idea. He had years on his body, and even though he's still legit tough by this point, it wasn't the best idea. Him as U.S. champion was very odd, and he was also only champion, I think, for like 5-6 weeks. So, we get a superplex by Booker, we get an axe kick, a Harlem sidekick, the bookend gets blocked, and then Rick Steiner kind of bobbles, you know, this, how Booker is supposed to counter the Steiner driver, and Booker almost hits a variation of a sling blade. Scott Steiner runs in and causes a DQ, and they would kind of, you know, fumble the whole DQ thing because there would be clear interference in front of the referee, and the referee would just do absolutely nothing about it because it didn't fit the script, I guess? Who the fuck knows? DDP runs in, and Scott Steiner tries to do something, but ends up kind of just slamming himself into the ropes because I think he was supposed to go over, but he was virtually immobile by this point, and his sunglasses popped out, which was kind of funny. And then they yell at each other, and we get the tag match main event later. And then the announcers kill time, show a clip of Dusty and Dustin from late January. And then we get Cruiserweight tag recaps, and then we get Styles and Air Paris versus Elix Skipper and his mystery partner, Kid Romeo. Kid Romeo making his WCW debut. And this wasn't bad. This actually might have been the best match of the evening because even though it went, you know, a little long, they at least kept the pace up. This didn't drag like the match on Thunder, at least in my opinion. In fact, all the matches on the Thunder before this one dragged quite a bit. There were good dive strikes. We got a nice, dive where Styles just wiped out everybody. Chavo was on the stage to watch, but why is he there? We find out a little bit later that he was going to get some people to help him face off against Shane Helms. And we get Skipper hitting a dropkick, and then Romeo hits some kind of weird driver 1, 2, 3, and there we go. We get Elix Skipper and Kid Romeo advancing, and then they would actually go on to win at Greed, and then Kidman and Ray would win the tag team championship soon after, making it completely, you know, irrelevant that the first champions, like, you know, even fucking mattered, because it happened at Greed, and then the company was done, like, 8 days later. So, I mean, they're already switching the belt. It is what it is. I mean, the Cruiserweight Tag Team Championships were never referred to afterwards. So, I guess it really didn't fucking matter in the end. But this was a pretty good match. O'Haire then says he will get payback on Luger for what he did to Chuck Palumbo. O'Haire versus Luger. Luger was virtually immobile by this point. He was roided out of his goddamn mind. I mean, seriously, look at the guy. He couldn't fucking move. Yes, he'd been wrestling since, what, like 86, 87? But honestly, he at least could move pretty well. He can move pretty well in the 98. And then you just fucking take a look at him not even like 3 years later. Because I'm talking like later in the 98. He could still move pretty goddamn well. And then it was like he just stopped caring. I don't know what the fuck was going on. I don't know what kind of hormones he was on. You know, what kind of roids he was on. HGH, who the fuck knows. But it was just to the point where he was basically like a goddamn statue. O'Haire did a backflip and hurt his knee. Palumbo pounding away on the package was a line from Schiavone, and I reacted to that with the good taste and maturity you've come to expect from me. Which, if you come to expect any of that from me, I don't really understand what you're doing here, though I appreciate you for watching. So, by the way, Palumbo is beaten up on Luger in front of the referee, no DQ. Why the fuck would there be a DQ? Totally buff attack O'Haire. And then we get a blockbuster to Luger while Palumbo is trying to do some stuff to run in and then getting knocked down, and this was really goddamn sloppy. This just brought everything goddamn down. I understand what they were trying to do, but Luger couldn't really do anything. Buff was not very good unless he had a tag partner that could lead him, and he could only have adequate singles matches. And then he hits an accidental blockbuster to Luger, and then we get the Shanton Bomb 1, 2, 3, and then he hits blockbuster on O'Haire. This was sloppy. This was really bad. M.I. Smooth drives Stasiak and Canyon somewhere, because Canyon is going to impersonate a doctor and try to, you know, verbally assault Miss Jones and scare her and stuff like that. Though it's not what it looked like when they got to the segment. Holy fucking shit. Stasiak says, oh, why don't you give her a little something? Hey, you know, here's an autograph, like, you know, to hand to her, because, you know, Miss Jones is going to remember who Shawn Stasiak is. No disrespect to Shawn Stasiak, but if she just suffered a diamond cutter or the canyon cutter and a concussion, she might not remember who anybody is except the man that attacked her. Oh boy, this gets awkward. Chavo talks about Shane Helms. When I leave him lying in a pool of his own blood, as opposed to someone else's blood. Promos were never Chavo's strong suit. Jarrett then cuts a promo, says he's going to face Dusty, and it turns out to be Ric Flair in a fat suit and a dusty mask. And it's a comedy match. Jarrett hits an elbow for 3. Well, the Dream's going to kiss my ass, and then here's Dustin to attack, and then Flair takes out the mask to reveal it's him. Oh no, and then Dusty comes out to a pretty good reaction. I mean, it is Greenville, South Carolina after all, but his generic theme just plays and plays and plays. It's like, they gave Dusty the New Jack and ECW treatment. Flair then says, I built this town and all this, and then Dusty, and I love Dusty. Dusty's one of the best promos of all time. He truly is. The man could talk people into the building. This went on forever. I'm just going to summarize it by basically saying, you talk about Jarrett's dad drinking a lot, chasing ladies of the evening, and then he took time out of his schedule to make that. Basically saying that Jarrett was the product of a woman that, was not that was like seen as beneath a man. Good job, Dusty. Good job there. And then said to Flair, hey, fat boy, referencing, Flair being, really, really big and wanting to be Dusty Rhodes' brother back at the beginning of his career. You're just an extra now. They agreed to have a tag match, agreed. And I'm going to make you kiss my ass. And then it turns out to actually be a donkey's ass. This feud was shit. It was really, really shit. And Dusty's promo, I understand what they were trying to do, but this was like, hey, we're just going to fill time. Dusty, go out there and kill time. And that's what he fucking did. Unfortunately, it just was not good. I mean, rest in peace, Dusty Rhodes, like one of the greatest of all time, but this was not a good representation of him, especially pretty much at the end of his on-screen career. Yes, he would have sporadic appearances, but oh boy. Helms then comes out with some female dancers for his entrance. I don't know why they rebranded the Nitro Girls as Skater Girls. Just a Skater Girl says see you later girl. Doesn't quite have the same pop. But we have Chavo versus Helms. The pace was good. Kid Romeo and Skipper are there to try and help Chavo, referencing the stuff that happened earlier. Helms dives on both of them. And then Romeo distracts the ref while Skipper helps Chavo beat up Helms. And then Brainbuster 1, 2, 3. This is also very awkward because you would think the ref would have some kind of eyesight or some kind of ability to just turn his head slightly. Hey, wait a second. That guy's not in the match. I should get him. Oh, well. So, Road to Spring Break footage. AOL 6.0. I remember AOL. I remember being around when the internet was first around and doing dial-up and all that shit. And yeah, I'm pretty goddamn old. And holy shit, even by 2001, there was still a lot of internet that was like all dial-up and all shit and whatever. So, Canyon's in the hospital with Miss Jones. This is one of the most uncomfortable segments that I've seen, and Russo wasn't even booking it. You would have thought Russo came back to book this, though. Because Canyon wanted to get at Miss Jones because obviously he'd hit the Canyon Cutter. He's feuding with Ernest Miller. Ernest Miller and Miss Jones have a relationship, at least an on-screen relationship. Maybe off-screen. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But this is uncomfortable because it implied that Canyon was basically going to assault Miss Jones. And I don't mean verbally. I mean, yeah, he was actually going to do that. And I'm not saying that Canyon himself would have ever done that. No, not one bit. But the way they made the character act, it's like, this wasn't a way to get anger on Canyon. This was like, what the fuck is going on here? This is really uncomfortable. And then also, Canyon, they reference later, after the segment, that Canyon had been in the hospital, and then after Mike Awesome had laid him out. How could Canyon do this? So they had Miller destroy Canyon for a bit, but then Canyon knocked him down, and then Miss Jones is saying, Cat, help me, get up and help me. This is, again, uncomfortable. He then takes a defib machine and chucks Canyon in the ass. That was a bit weird. It was a lot weird because they were trying to recreate the Vince McMahon Stone Cold Steve Austin hospital thing in their own way, but this wasn't a good feud to do it with because nobody really cared about it. And good Lord, give me that tape is what Miller said because there was a camera crew filming it. This was bad. This was really fucking bad. Really, really bad. Mike Awesome versus Hugh Morris. Well, they tried to make it work. They really did. Hugh Morris was feuding with Lance Storm again. Revisiting the feud that nobody really cared about because it went on forever. Even though Lance Storm and Hugh Morris tried to make it work, Well, he was General Erection because dick jokes. Whoo! Storm attacks Morris. No DQ again. Missed awesome splash. No laughing matter. It was practically a headbutt. 1, 2, 3. Storm locks on the Maple Leaf, and then Konnan runs in because Konnan and Storm had brawled earlier. Steiner Brothers versus DDP and Booker. They did like 5 minutes of promos. Seriously, just a fill time, and then I think we got like a few minutes of a match. Booker got beat up a while. DDP got back in later. Booker and Scott go to the ramp and then to the backstage area where the rest of the Magnificent Seven beat up on Booker. Diamond Cutter to Rick, and 1, 2, 3. Then he runs out Steiner, or hey Scott, I'm still standing. But then Scott Steiner attacks him. They brawl, and that's pretty much it right there. So yeah, that's really not all that. There's really not much to go on about that or besides that there. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.